to introduce a woman who I believe founded Women in Gender Studies, that's what it's called?
Co-founded with another woman.
With another woman, UT, along with so many other wonderful things in your life. You write poetry, you run...
I'm the one with the romantic poet. I think that's...
Yeah. Okay, so Betty Flowers, would you call yourself a second wave feminist?
Definitely, yes.
All right, so did you have to sue anyone?
Usually you could get other people to sue. I never could maintain enough anger long enough to do it, so I was less effective.
That's a really useful thing in the long run to not maintain anger, I think. Because you're probably a little happier, right?
Yes, but sometimes one of my friends wrote a book called In Cold Anger about the movement of Hispanics in this country. If you can maintain a kind of cold anger for long enough, you can persist enough to change the world. So anger is useful.
Well, for sure, if it doesn't, give you an ulcer.
True.
Yeah, okay. So you said something really fascinating about what the 3 big things are you learned from feminism. And maybe you want to share those, but I particularly want to hear more about gossip, because I think this is a really great, I know it came to last year's, anyone had last year's gossip panel that I did? Not that, Julia, are you here? No, Julia Allison's not here. Great, because there's thinking involved in this panel. Okay.
The question was, everything I know about the web I learned from feminism, and what might that mean? What did I learn from feminism?
Right.
So there are 3 things, really, the feminist insights. 1, the personal is the political. The personal is, and you can fill in the blank, the personal is extremely powerful and out there. The second, everything's connected. And the third is gossip makes the world go round. And if you look at the etymology of the word gossip, it comes from Old English, 2 words. It actually goes way, way back before that. But in Old English, the 2 words are God. It comes from godkip, God, and something to do with kin, like kinship. And the gossips, the earliest gossips, were the women who attended another woman in childbirth, who stood around in childbirth. So it morphed into something that was looked down upon until recently it's been rehabilitated.
When did that happen? Do you know?
The morphing?
The morphing.
Oh, you can, Elizabethan times it begins to have a negative connotation. But before that, it wasn't particularly negative. It meant, in fact, the person that stood by, the kin that stands by someone who's baptized, say. So one of the interesting aspects of this etymology, it seems to me, is that those who stand by declare themselves kin because they're standing by in a spiritual sense. They're the ones that attend the birth of new things. So this whole social media, to me, it's extremely interesting that it's so based on gossip and connectedness, and I think it's a really wonderful thing. And glad for third wave feminism. It's much more fun than second wave was.
Yeah, but grateful to those who were willing to not have the fun so we could. That's for sure.
I'm making up for it now.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it. So gossip, Julia, this is great. So Julia Ingwin, I don't know if any of you know, Julia Ingwin is a writer for Wall Street Journal, and she has a new book coming out called Stealing MySpace. Yeah, you look surprised. That's the name, right?
Most people get it wrong, so I'm pleased.
Oh, it's called Stealing MySpace. It's about how the guys who run MySpace don't get that their company is sold from under them. It's really like sort of a soap opera of business and full of drama, which seems to me to be like, as long as there's money involved, the guys don't get that they're really big Melrose Place. I'm not sure, but it's not red light to me. So gossip, how important was gossip to MySpace's creation as a company? And it's kind of a big jump to take here, but I mean, you've done a lot of reporting on business for a very business-oriented publication, and yet isn't it kind of traditional, quote-unquote, girly stuff that really drove MySpace to be considered a valuable business?
Yes, absolutely. Gossip. When I was reporting Stealing MySpace, the thing that shocked me was that I had this realization halfway through the reporting that this was all about girls. Not really, it was actually girls who were like 10 years old. And
Are you guys here?
Can you hear me? No.
Okay. You gotta really put it close to your mouth.
Okay, I'm just gonna eat it.
Eat it.
Okay. Is that better? Okay. So I had this realization while I was reporting Stealing MySpace that the whole movement of MySpace, which was created by men and is this room, there were a lot of guys in there who were 25 and had not showered. And they were all paging through 17, Cosmo Girl, and all these magazines to figure out which kind of glitter to make. Because glitter was the hot thing on MySpace. And they had a woman there, Sandy, who was sort of like their resident girl. And she was the one who came up with the idea for Rocky widgets, and all these guys had actually made business of it, but she was the one they went to when they were like, well, do you think this glitter is going to work, or maybe that glitter? And she knew what was going to be cool. And she was about 18. So I had this realization, like, oh my gosh, this is not about all these guys clubbing in Hollywood, which is what the story is about, but their audience is all girls, and they're all talking to each other in a different language, and all these men had to learn how to speak that language.
And so to me, part of what made me so interested in this general conversation is the idea that the fact that these guys are doing this, and it has a market valuation, right, and advisors, venture capitalists, and people in khakis and all that stuff, now it's like a real part of the economy. And now it has, numbers, and it's in GDP, which is something second wave feminism used to see. Women's work is unpaid, and it's private, it's, private sphere, no one sees it. Now all of a sudden, it's super public, and it's valued, and every member has, they probably had a valuation for every member, I would think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, at a certain point, they were valuing it at 15 billion. I think no longer can they make that argument. But yeah, MySpace is, $1 billion in revenue a year. Something to sneeze at. That's good for women's work.
And do you think they understand that that's what used to be called women's work, or is it that feminism has palm-olive-wise changed our culture enough that it's just like part of the world, and of course this is how we're going to interact and do business?
And no one that I interviewed or talked to in any of these social networks has ever described it as women's work, except the guys at Rocky who were reading 17, and only after I asked them why they were reading 17.
For the articles.
But it's really, it's an extremely male culture. And
what do you mean by that? When you say male culture, what does that mean?
It's, the culture of Silicon Valley in general is still really male. I grew up in Silicon Valley, and there's a machismo to sort of programming culture and staying up all night and drinking Coke and...
But do you think compared to guys in other careers, it seems machismo? Guys are still like the industrial economy. Do you think it's macho?
Well, I think they're the same as the Wall Street guys I cover.
Really?
Yeah, same. Actually, the culture is pretty much the equivalent. It's just the suits are